The medical machines beeped slower and slower in the empty ship. Hannah lay on the bed, her breath coming in short gasps. She was 127 years old, and she was the last human alive in the entire universe. The colony ship drifted through dead space, its engines cold for decades. Around Hannah's bed, holographic screens showed images from the past. Earth burning under a black sky. Cities crumbling as the swarm ate everything. Millions of ships trying to escape, most of them failing. She had watched these recordings so many times that she knew every moment by heart. Hannah had been just a child when the devourer swarm came. Nobody knew where it came from. It appeared at the edge of the galaxy like a storm, a living wave of creatures that ate planets. Not just the people or the animals, but everything. The rocks, the water, the air itself. The swarm consumed worlds and moved to the next one, always hungry, never stopping. The other species in the galaxy fell quickly. The Valorani were wise and ancient, but the swarm ate them in 20 years. The Cortesh had ruled 1,000 star systems, but they lasted only 30 years. The Pinnacle Collective had technology beyond imagination, but they died in 15 years. All of them surrendered when they saw they could not win. But humans were different. Humans fought for 300 years. Hannah remembered the stories her grandmother told her. How humans turned their own suns into bombs. How they crashed moon-sized ships into swarm fleets. How soldiers would cover themselves in explosives and run into enemy lines, laughing and screaming. The other species fought to survive. Humans fought because they were angry. The galaxy learned to fear humanity. Not because humans were the strongest or the smartest, but because humans never knew when to quit. A human with one bullet left was more dangerous than most species with full armies. A human ship with failing engines would ram the enemy rather than retreat. When humans lost a planet, they made sure to take 10 enemy planets with them. Hannah's grandmother had fought in the Battle of New Sol. 50,000 human soldiers against 5 million swarm creatures. The humans lost, but they killed 4 million enemies before they fell. Her grandmother survived only because she was blown into space by an explosion. A rescue ship found her floating in the void 3 days later, still holding her gun. The medical machines beeped even slower now. Hannah could feel her heart struggling. There was no one to save her. No rescue ships would come. No doctors waited to help. She was alone on a dead ship in empty space, the last member of a species that once filled a galaxy. She thought about all the humans who came before her. Billions and billions of people, all gone now. Warriors who faced impossible odds. Scientists who built weapons from stars. Parents who hid their children in escape pods and died fighting to give them time. All of them were dust now, consumed by the swarm or killed in the endless war. But Hannah smiled as her vision grew dark. She smiled because she remembered what made humans special. It was not that they were strong. It was not that they were smart. It was that they refused to be forgotten. Every human ship had carried records, databases, memory banks. Every human soldier wore armor that recorded their life. Every human world had hidden vaults filled with who they were and what they had done. Humanity had spent 300 years losing a war, but they made sure the universe would remember them. They carved their names on asteroids. They built monuments on dead worlds. They broadcasted their story to every corner of space. Even if they all died, their legend would live forever. Hannah's hand moved slowly to the small device on her wrist. It was old technology, older than her grandmother. She pressed the button with her last strength. The device hummed and sent out a signal that spread faster than light, touching every corner of the universe in an instant. The last light protocol was active. Hannah's lips moved one final time. Her voice was so quiet that nobody could have heard it, but the ship's computer recorded her words. "We were here, she whispered. We mattered. Her heart stopped. The medical machines let out a long, flat sound. The last human was dead. For a moment, nothing happened. The ship drifted in silence. The screens around Hana's bed flickered and went dark. The universe continued as it always had, stars burning and worlds spinning. But something changed. Something so small that only the most sensitive instruments could have detected it. Every star in the galaxy dimmed for exactly 1/10 of a second. Not enough for anyone to notice, but it happened. The universe itself paused, as if taking a breath. And in 40 different places across the galaxy, ancient machines woke up. In sealed tombs on forgotten worlds, in vaults hidden in asteroid fields, in ships that floated dead in space for centuries, power systems activated. Lights turned on in the darkness. Computers booted up after 300 years of silence out in the ruins of Fortress Taiyang. A military station that orbited a dead star, a chamber opened. Inside, sitting in a command throne, was a man in an old general's uniform. His eyes had been closed for 300 years. His body had been frozen in time by technology that stopped death itself. General Day opened his eyes. His first breath was sharp and cold. His second breath came easier. By the third breath, he was fully awake. He looked at his hands, flexing his fingers. He could feel his heart beating, feel blood moving through his body, but something was different. He felt light, as if he weighed nothing. He felt strong, stronger than he ever had in life. Data flooded into his mind through neural implants in his brain. He saw everything at once. The war, the defeat, the death of Earth, the extinction of humanity, and the protocol, the last light protocol that he himself had helped create centuries ago. General Day stood up from his throne. Around him, the fortress was dead and cold, but he could feel power running through it. Not electricity, but something else. Something that responded to his thoughts. He reached out with his mind and felt the fortress wake up. Lights flickered on. Systems activated. The station that had been dead for centuries suddenly lived again. Across the galaxy, 39 other warriors opened their eyes. They all felt the same things. The same strength. The same memories. The same burning purpose. They had been humanity's best, its greatest heroes, and now they were alive again. Or something like alive. Something new. Something the universe had never seen before. General Day walked to the fortress windows and looked out at the stars. His reflection stared back at him, and he saw something in his own eyes that had not been there before. A fire that would never go out. A determination that death itself could not stop. He opened a communication channel on the old human frequencies, knowing the others would hear him. His voice was calm and cold as he spoke. This is General Day. All units report. Humanity is extinct. Our mission now is to make sure the universe never forgets why they should have feared us. Commander Wu woke up inside a fighter ship that had crashed on a frozen moon 300 years ago. The cockpit was dark and cold, but when he opened his eyes, the systems came to life. He did not understand how. The ship had no power. It had been dead for centuries. But when he touched the controls, they responded as if they had been waiting for him. He ran through his memories. The last thing he remembered was the Battle of the Broken Ring, where he and 5 other pilots held off an entire swarm fleet. They were protecting evacuation ships full of civilians. They knew they would die, but they bought enough time for 30,000 people to escape. Wu remembered his ship exploding. He remembered the fire and the pain. He remembered dying, but now he was alive, or something like it. He looked at his hands and saw them glowing faintly, like they were made of light held together by will. When he stepped out of the crashed ship, his boots did not sink into the snow. He floated just above it, as if gravity meant nothing to him. Across the galaxy, Dr. Mira opened her eyes in a research station buried deep in an ice planet. She had been one of humanity's greatest scientists, the woman who created weapons that made the swarm hesitate. The last thing she remembered was finishing her final project, a bomb that could erase entire star systems. She had set it off to destroy a swarm hive world. Knowing she would die in the blast dot, now she stood in her old laboratory, and she could feel things she never felt before. She could sense energy flowing through space. She could feel the quantum particles dancing around her. She touched a broken machine, and it fixed itself. She thought about data, and it appeared in her mind. She was connected to something vast, something that felt like the memory of every human who ever lived. Admiral Jin woke up on the bridge of his flagship, the ship that had led humanity's last great battle. He had gone down with his ship, refusing to abandon it even when the hull broke apart. Now he stood on the bridge, and the ship was whole again. Not repaired, but remade. The walls glowed with soft light. The engines hummed with power that came from nowhere. Captain Yuna found herself in a military base on an asteroid. She had been Special Forces, the kind of soldier who did impossible missions. She once infiltrated a swarm bio-titan, a creature the size of a city, and planted a bomb inside its brain. She died in the explosion, taking the Titan with her. Now she was back, and she felt faster and stronger than ever. She could move through walls if she wanted to. She could disappear and reappear somewhere else. Death had given her new abilities that life never had. Engineer Kai woke up in a shipyard that floated in deep space. He had been the man who built the impossible drives, the engines that let human ships escape when there was no escape. He died when the swarm destroyed his station, but he stayed at his post until the last ship got away. Now he stood in the ruins of his workplace, and he understood. The ships around him were wrecks, but he could bring them back. Not with tools or materials, but with thought and will. All 40 warriors felt the same message burning in their minds. It was the last light protocol, the plan they had all helped create long ago. If humanity ever went extinct, if the last human ever died, this would activate. Technology hidden across the galaxy would bring back the 40 greatest heroes. They would return not as ghosts, but as something more. Something that could not die again. Something that would make the universe remember humanity forever. General Day's voice came through on the old frequencies, and all 40 heard him clearly. They responded one by one, their voices carried across impossible distances by connections they did not fully understand. Commander Wu reporting. I'm alive. I think Dr. Myra here. My readings are impossible, but I'm functional. Admiral Jin. My ship is operational. I don't know how, but it is. Captain Yuna, ready for orders. Engineer Kai, I can feel every human machine in this sector. They're all waiting. One by one, all 40 warriors checked in. They were scattered across the galaxy, but they could feel each other. They were connected by something deeper than communication systems. They were connected by the same force that brought them back, the same will that refused to let humanity be forgotten. General Day analyzed their situation with a tactical mind that had made him legendary. They were 40 soldiers against a force that had consumed the galaxy. The swarm was everywhere, millions of worlds, billions of creatures. Logic said they could not win. Logic said they should accept their extinction with dignity. But humans had never cared about logic. Humans cared about making a statement. Listen carefully, Day said to the others. We are not here to win the war. That war is over. Humanity lost. But we are here to make sure that loss means something. We are here to become a legend so terrifying that species will tell stories about us for millions of years. We are here to teach the universe that you can kill humanity, but you cannot make us quit. Dr. Myra spoke up. General, I've been analyzing our condition. We're in a quantum state, existing between life and death. We're sustained by something I'm calling the human resonance. Every human who ever lived left an imprint on the universe. Their memories, their DNA, their consciousness, all stored in the quantum field. We're drawing power from that. As long as that resonance exists, we cannot die. Can we fight? Admiral Jin asked the practical question. We can do more than fight, Mira answered. I think we can access the resonance consciously. We can draw on the knowledge and strength of every human who came before us. We can manifest their presence. We can make the dead fight beside us. There was silence as they all understood what that meant. They were not just 40 warriors. They were the focused will of an entire extinct species. They were humanity's final middle finger to a universe that thought it could forget them. Then we need a target, Captain Yuna said. Something that will get everyone's attention. General Day had already thought of that. We go after the core hive, the entity that consumed Earth itself. But first, we send a message. We hit a swarm fleet hard enough that the whole galaxy notices. I'm detecting a swarm tendril fleet near the old Vathan border, Commander Wu reported. 10,000 ships, moving to consume another system. Perfect, Day said. All units, converge on my coordinates. We're going to show the universe what happens when you kill the last human. We're going to show them that humanity's death was the worst mistake the swarm ever made. The 40 warriors moved through space in ways that should have been impossible. Their ships teleported across light years in seconds. They phased through obstacles. They accelerated to speeds that should have torn them apart. Physics bent around them because they were no longer bound by the rules that governed living things. They gathered at a point in deep space, 40 ships against the darkness. Some were fighters, some were frigates, some were massive battleships. All of them glowed with the same soft light, the light of consciousness given form. Admiral Jin organized them into formation. Commander Wu calculated attack vectors. Dr. Myra charged weapons that drew power from the fabric of space itself. Captain Yuna prepared boarding teams that could walk through walls. Engineer Kai synchronized their ships so they moved as one. And General Day stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking at the swarm fleet in the distance. He thought about all the humans who died fighting these creatures. He thought about Earth, consumed and forgotten. He thought about Hana, dying alone on a dead ship. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone about to do something terrible and feeling absolutely no guilt about it. All units, he said quietly. Show them why they should have let us rest in peace. Show them what happens when you wake the dead. Attack. 40 ships accelerated toward 10,000. It should have been suicide. It should have been impossible. But the warriors were beyond such concerns now. They were legends given form, and legends do not care about impossible odds. The Battle of the Vathan border was about to begin, and the galaxy would never forget it. The swarm fleet detected the 40 ships, approaching and immediately changed formation. The swarm was not intelligent in the way humans understood intelligence, but it learned quickly. It had fought humanity for 300 years and learned to respect their tactics. When humans attacked, even with small numbers, it meant danger. But these were only 40 ships against 10,000. The swarm calculated victory with absolute certainty. It sent forward attack groups to surround and destroy the human vessels. 3,000 swarm ships moved to intercept, their organic hulls pulsing with bioenergy weapons. Commander Wu took his fighter squadron forward first. 5 small ships against 3,000. He did not hesitate. He did not need to. He remembered every battle he ever fought, every trick he ever learned. And now he had abilities that made those tricks into nightmares. His fighter moved through space like water, flowing around enemy fire instead of dodging it. When swarm ships tried to surround him, he phased through them, his ship becoming ghost-like for just a moment. As he passed through enemy hulls, he left explosions behind him. The other 4 pilots in his squadron did the same, dancing through the swarm formation. Like deadly spirits, the swarm had never seen anything like it. Ships that should obey physics suddenly did not. Weapons that should run out of ammunition never did. Pilots that should make mistakes never made them. In 5 minutes, Commander Wu's squadron destroyed 500 swarm ships without taking a single hit. Then Admiral Jin brought in the heavy ships. 3 massive battleships that had been legends in the old war, now restored and enhanced by quantum power. They fired weapons that tore holes in space itself, energy beams that drew power from dying stars light years away, missiles that could think and plan and hunt their targets through multiple dimensions. But the true horror came when Dr. Mira activated her special weapon. She had been studying the human resonance during their flight to the battle. She found she could not just access human memories, but manifest them, make them temporarily real. She concentrated, reaching into the quantum field where all human consciousness was stored. She called out to the warriors who died fighting the swarm. She called to the soldiers, the pilots, the officers, the engineers. She called to everyone who died with a weapon in their hand and rage in their heart. And they answered around the 40 ships. Space began to shimmer. Ghost images appeared, translucent but visible. Human ships from battles centuries old flickered into existence. At first they were just images, recordings played back by the universe itself. But as Dr. Myra focused harder, they became more solid. More real. The ghost fleet grew. Hundreds of ships, then thousands. All of them crewed by the echoes of dead humans, given temporary form by the power of the resonance. They were not as strong as real ships, and they would fade in time, but for this battle, they were enough. The swarm suddenly faced not 40 ships, but 40,000. The numbers had reversed. Now the swarm was outnumbered. Now the swarm faced the full might of humanity's rage. Concentrated into one moment, Captain Yuna led boarding parties onto swarm bioships. She and her ghost soldiers phased through the organic hulls and appeared inside. The swarm creatures inside found themselves fighting enemies that could not be killed, soldiers that walked through walls and fired weapons that did not need to reload. Yuna moved through the ships like a deadly shadow, destroying control centers and navigation systems before the swarm even knew she was their engineer. Kai did something even stranger. He reached out to the old human ships floating dead in this sector, wrecks from battles fought centuries ago. He called to them, and they responded. Dead engines sparked to life. Broken hulls sealed themselves. Weapons long cold charged up again. Dozens of derelict ships joined the battle, crewed by no one, controlled by Kai's will alone. The swarm tried to adapt. It always adapted. That was how it survived for so long. It created new weapons, new tactics, new creatures designed to fight quantum enemies. But every time it adapted, the humans changed faster. They had the experience of 300 years of war in their memories. And they had abilities the swarm could not predict. General Day coordinated everything from his command ship. His tactical genius enhanced by his quantum state. He could see the entire battlefield at once, could calculate 10,000 variables simultaneously, could predict enemy movements before they happened. He moved his forces like a conductor, leading an orchestra of destruction. The Battle of the Vathan border lasted 3 hours. When it ended, all 10,000 swarm ships were destroyed. The 40 human warriors did not lose a single vessel. They could not be destroyed because they were already dead. They could not be defeated because defeat meant nothing to ghosts seeking vengeance. As the last swarm ship exploded, the ghost fleet began to fade. The echo ships flickered and disappeared, returning to quantum memory. The dead soldiers saluted the 40 warriors and dissolved back into the field from which they came. But their message was delivered. Humanity could not be truly killed. Their will was too strong. Their rage was too deep, and the galaxy was watching. The Vathan Empire had positioned observation ships near the border, studying the swarm, as they always did. They recorded the entire battle. They watched 40 impossible ships destroy a fleet that should have crushed them. They watched ghost armies manifest from nothing. They watched the laws of physics bend around human will. The Vathan were a crystalline species, their bodies made of living glass. They were scientific and careful, always observing and never acting rashly. They had survived the swarm by hiding, by being insignificant, by not drawing attention. They thought humanity had been foolish to fight so openly, so aggressively, but now they understood. Humanity did not fight to win. They fought to be remembered. And they succeeded. The Vathan recorded everything and sent it across their communication networks. Within hours, every surviving species in the galaxy knew. The humans had returned. The extinct species was back, and they were no longer bound by mortality. General Day received reports from all his warriors. No losses, minimal damage, all objectives achieved. But he knew this was just the beginning. One battle would not make them legends. They needed to do more. They needed to strike at the heart of the swarm itself. "Dr. Myra," he called. "How long can we maintain manifestations from the resonance?" "Not long in normal conditions," she replied. "But near old human battlefields, where lots of humans died, the resonance is stronger there. We could manifest armies for days or even weeks. Then we go to the old battlefields," Day decided. "We reclaim them one by one. We turn every place humanity died into a fortress of ghost soldiers. We make the swarm fight our dead over and over until they learn to fear even human graves." Admiral Jin pulled up star charts showing the major battle sites from the 300-year war. There were hundreds of them. Planets where millions died. Space stations where last stands were made. Nebulas where entire fleets were destroyed. Each one was a place of human death, but also human glory. "It will take years to hit them all," Jin observed. "We have nothing but time," Captain Yuna said. "We cannot die. We cannot age. We are eternal now. We can fight for 1,000 years if we need to." Commander Wu spoke up. "The swarm is already changing its behavior. I'm detecting retreat patterns from their forward positions. They're pulling back, consolidating. They're afraid." "Good," General Day said. The word was cold and final. Let them be afraid. Let them learn what every human soldier knew. It's not the enemy you can kill that you should fear. It's the enemy that keeps coming back, no matter how many times you put them down. The 40 warriors set course for their next target, the ruins of New Sol Station, where 50,000 humans held off 5 million swarm creatures for 70 days. It was a place soaked in human blood and human determination. It was a place where the resonance would be strong as their ships accelerated through space, leaving trails of quantum light. Something else happened across the galaxy. On Vathan worlds, young crystalline beings accessed the recordings of the battle. They watched the human warriors fight. They saw the impossible tactics, the fearless aggression, the absolute refusal to surrender, and they began to study humanity, not as a dead species, but as legends. They accessed old human databases. They learned human languages. They read human history and human stories. They found recordings of human music, human art, human philosophy. The Vathan were not the only ones. Other species that survived the swarm also began seeking information about humans. The myth was spreading faster than the warriors could have planned. Humanity was becoming exactly what General Day wanted, a legend that would live forever. On a Vathan research station, A young scientist named Tevek created a project called the Archives of Humanity. He would collect every piece of human data he could find. He would preserve their culture, their history, their memory. He did this not out of duty, but out of something new, something the careful Vathan rarely felt. He did it out of respect, and perhaps just a little bit of fear. The ruins of New Sol Station floated in orbit around a dead planet. The station was massive, a military fortress that once held 250,000 people. Now it was just broken metal and frozen atmosphere, a tomb for the 50,000 soldiers who made their last stand here. 3 centuries ago, the 40 warriors arrived and felt the resonance immediately. It was stronger here than anywhere else they had been. The quantum field practically vibrated with the echoes of battle. This place had seen so much death, so much courage, so much rage that it had left a permanent mark on reality itself. General Day stood in what used to be the command center. The walls were scarred with weapons fire. The floor was stained with old blood, frozen in the vacuum. Holograms flickered weakly, showing the last moments of the battle. He watched as human soldiers fought, even when their weapons ran out. He watched them use chairs, pipes, their own fists against the swarm creatures. Not one of them ran. Not one of them surrendered. "This place remembers," Dr. Mara said quietly beside him. She was reading the quantum signatures. Every death here left an imprint. Every act of defiance. Every last breath. The resonance is so strong that I think we could manifest thousands of soldiers here and maintain them indefinitely. Then this becomes our fortress, they decided. We rebuild this station. We make it operational again. And we use it as a base to strike at the swarm. Engineer Kai got to work immediately. He moved through the broken station, touching walls and machinery. Where his hands passed, things repaired themselves. Power systems came online. Life support activated. Weapons batteries charged up. The station that had been dead for 300 years began to live again. Powered by quantum energy and human will. As Kai worked, Dr. Mira began a new experiment. She reached into the resonance and called specifically to the soldiers who died here. She spoke to them across time and death, asking them to manifest. And slowly, like fog forming on a cold morning, they appeared. Ghost soldiers materialized in the corridors. They looked translucent at first, barely visible. But as Dr. Mira channeled more power from the resonance, they became more solid, more real. They picked up weapons that formed in their hands. They took positions at defensive points. They stood ready as if the battle had never ended. But these were not mindless echoes. When General Day spoke to them, they responded. They saluted. They acknowledged orders. They were the actual consciousness of the soldiers who died here, given temporary form through the power of the resonance. They remembered their lives. They remembered dying. And they were grateful for the chance to fight again. Captain Yuna walked among the ghost soldiers, checking their readiness. She recognized some of them from old records. Heroes from the 300-year war. Some had been her teachers. Some had been legends even before they died. Now they stood ready to fight again, and they looked at her with respect because they knew what she was. She was one of the 40, one of the chosen few who came back to finish what they started. The swarm detected human activity it knew, Sol Station, and sent a response fleet. 5,000 ships, determined to crush this threat before it could grow. They arrived expecting to find 40 ships and maybe some defensive stations. Instead, they found a fully operational fortress. Thousands of human soldiers. Hundreds of fighter craft. Weapons that had been used to hold off the swarm for 70 days, now charged and ready. And 40 quantum warriors who could not be killed leading the defense. The battle was brutal, but one-sided. The swarm threw everything at the station, but Commander Wu's fighter squadrons tore through their formations. Admiral Jin's battleships shattered their capital ships. Captain Yuna's boarding parties infected their biovessels with ghost soldiers who fought from within. And the defensive guns, operated by the manifested dead, fired with perfect accuracy because these soldiers had spent 70 days learning exactly how to kill swarm creatures. The swarm lost all 5,000 ships. New Sol Station did not take a single critical hit. When the battle ended, General Day broadcasted a message on all frequencies, knowing the galaxy was listening. This is General Day of humanity. We have reclaimed New Sol Station. This is human territory now. This is sacred ground where heroes died. Any entity that approaches this station with hostile intent will learn why the swarm could not break us in 300 years. You can kill us, but you cannot make our graves peaceful. Remember that. Over the next months, the 40 warriors repeated this process across the galaxy. They went to every major battlefield from the old war. The Battle of Broken Stars, where humanity lost its last great fleet. The Siege of Titan, where a single fortress held for 3 years. The Defense of Haven, where civilians fought alongside soldiers because there was no one else left at each location. They rebuilt. They called forth the dead. They created fortresses of ghost soldiers that would never tire, never surrender, never stop fighting. The swarm found itself facing an enemy that grew stronger on every world where humans had died. And humans had died everywhere. Dr. Mira continued her research into the resonance, and she discovered something terrifying. She could do more than manifest soldiers. She could manifest experiences. She could take human memories of battle, of rage, of absolute determination, and encode them into weapons. She created bullets that carried the emotion of a mother defending her children, missiles that held the fury of soldiers watching their world burn, energy beams that contained the absolute refusal to surrender that defined humanity. When these weapons hit swarm creatures, something unprecedented happened. The swarm started to feel fear. The hive mind, which had consumed 1,000 species without emotion, began experiencing trauma. Swarm creatures started fleeing from battle. Swarm fleets stopped advancing into sectors where humans had fought. The entity that had terrorized the galaxy began to know terror itself. The Vathan scientist, Tivek, continued his Archives of Humanity project. He traveled to old human worlds, collecting data. He found libraries and databases. He recovered human art, human music, human literature. And as he learned more about humanity, he understood why they were so terrifying. Humans had known they were going to lose. From the very beginning, they knew extinction was inevitable. But instead of surrendering, instead of accepting mercy, they decided that if they were going to die, they would die in a way that the universe would never forget. They turned their extinction into a weapon. Tivek published his findings, and they spread across the galaxy. Young beings of 12 species read about humanity. They learned human words. Courage, defiance, never surrender, remember us. These concepts became popular among the youth of species that had survived by hiding, by being careful, by avoiding conflict. The Vathan government noticed this cultural shift with concern. Their young were becoming more aggressive, more willing to take risks. Some were even volunteering to help the human warriors fight the swarm. The careful, scientific Vathan were learning human philosophy, and it was changing them. Meanwhile, the 40 warriors prepared for their final assault. They had reclaimed dozens of battlefields. They had built an army of ghost soldiers. They had weapons that could make the swarm feel pain and fear. Now they were ready to strike at the core hive, the entity that consumed Earth itself. Admiral Jin presented the plan. The core hive was at the center of the galaxy, a structure the size of a solar system. It was protected by millions of swarm ships and billions of creatures. It was the swarm's brain, its heart, its origin point. Destroying it would not kill the swarm entirely, but it would cripple it beyond recovery. "It's a suicide mission," Commander Wu observed. "Even for us." "All our missions were suicide missions," Captain Yuna replied with a smile. "We're just better at suicide than most." "Dr. Myra, what do you need?" General Day asked Mira had been working on a final weapon, something that would use the full power of the human resonance. "I need time," she said, "and I need all of us to channel the resonance together. We're going to make the swarm remember every human it ever consumed. We're going to make it experience the death of Earth. We're going to make it understand exactly what it destroyed. How long?" Day asked. 3 days to build the device. But deploying it inside the core hive will take time. Someone needs to get it to the center and hold it there while it activates. It will take approximately 10 minutes. 10 minutes while the entire swarm tries to stop us. The 40 warriors looked at each other. They all knew what that meant. Even quantum beings that could not die permanently might not survive what waited in the core hive. But none of them hesitated. "Then we go," General Day said simply. "We finish this. We make sure that when the universe tells the story of humanity, they tell it correctly. We were small. We were mortal. We lost. But we made the enemy pay for every meter of ground. We made them regret ever hearing our name." The warriors prepared for their final battle. They gathered their ghost armies. They charged their weapons. They synchronized their ships. And across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited to see what the legendary humans would do next. The core hive pulsed at the center of the galaxy like a diseased heart. It was massive beyond comprehension, a structure built from the consumed remains of 1,000,000 worlds. Organic towers the size of planets reached out into space. Bioships grew from its surface like fungus. And deep inside, in its central chamber, was the consciousness that controlled the entire swarm. The 40 warriors approached with their ghost fleet. Thousands of manifested ships followed them, crewed by the echoes of dead humans. They knew many would not survive this battle, even in their quantum state. The core hive was protected by every defense the swarm could create. But the warriors had made their choice. They would finish this, or they would make sure the galaxy remembered them trying. The swarm detected them immediately. Alarms that existed only in the hive mind screamed warnings. Millions of ships launched from the core. Billions of creatures activated on its surface. The swarm had learned to fear humans, and now it would throw everything at them to ensure they stayed dead. General Day organized the attack from his command ship. He divided the fleet into 3 groups. Admiral Jin would lead one group to attack the outer defenses. Commander Wu would take fighters to clear a path. And Day himself would lead the assault team directly into the core's heart. Carrying Dr. Myra's weapon Dot, the battle began like thunder. Jin's battleships fired weapons that cracked space itself. Wu's fighters danced through enemy formations, leaving destruction in their wake. The ghost fleet surged forward, each ship filled with soldiers who had waited 300 years for revenge. The swarm's defenses were overwhelming. For every swarm ship destroyed, 10 more appeared. The ghost vessels began to fade, their quantum existence unable to maintain cohesion under such heavy fire. Thousands of manifested ships dissolved back into the resonance, the soldiers aboard them saluting one last time before disappearing. But they bought time. Every second, every meter of space, every destroyed enemy ship gave the assault team more opportunity. Captain Yuna led her boarding parties onto the core's surface, fighting through layers of organic tissue. Engineer Kai hacked into the biostructure systems, causing cascading failures that opened corridors toward the center. Dr. Mira focused on maintaining the weapon. It was a device that did not destroy matter, but attacked consciousness itself. It would force the swarm's hive mind to experience every death it ever caused. every consumed world, every destroyed species, and most painfully, every human death. The weapon would make the swarm understand what it had destroyed. General Day and 10 other warriors pushed deep into the core. They fought through corridors made of living flesh. They destroyed defense creatures that had evolved specifically to kill quantum beings. They moved forward relentlessly, even as their quantum forms began to destabilize from the intensity of the swarm's attacks. Behind them, the battle raged. Admiral Jin's flagship took critical damage but kept fighting, its crew of ghost soldiers refusing to abandon their posts even as the ship broke apart. Commander Wu's fighter was hit by bioplasma, and he crashed into the core surface. But he climbed out of the wreckage and kept fighting on foot, running across the organic landscape, destroying everything in his path. The assault team reached the central chamber. It was enormous, a space large enough to hold cities. At its center pulsed the swarm's core consciousness, a mass of bioneural tissue that glowed with sickly light. Around it floated thousands of swarm creatures, all oriented toward the intruders. "This is it," Dr. Myra said. She activated the weapon, but it needed time to charge. 10 minutes. "I need 10 minutes. "You'll have it," General Day said. He turned to the other warriors with him. "Form defensive positions. Nothing gets through." The swarm attacked with everything. Creatures swarmed from every direction. Bio-weapons fired from the walls. The very structure of the chamber tried to crush them. But the warriors held. They formed a circle around Dr. Mira and her weapon, and they fought with the accumulated skill of humanity's 300-year war. Captain Yuna moved like lightning, her quantum form allowing her to be in 3 places at once. Engineer Kai turned the core's own systems against it, causing explosions that cleared entire sections. The other warriors fought with weapons that grew more powerful the longer they fought, drawing energy from the resonance and the rage of every dead Huma. And minutes passed like hours. Warriors fell, their quantum forms unable to maintain cohesion. They dissolved into light, but even as they faded, they kept fighting. One warrior charged into a mass of swarm creatures, detonating himself like a bomb, taking hundreds of enemies with him. Another grabbed a swarm titan and dragged it away from Dr. Mira, still fighting even as both of them fell into an abyss. General Day felt his own form destabilizing. The damage was too much, even for his quantum state. But he kept fighting, kept holding the line. He thought about Hana, the last human dying alone. He thought about Earth, consumed and forgotten. He thought about all the humans who fought and died, hoping their sacrifice mattered. 5 minutes, Dr. Myra called out. The swarm seemed to understand what was happening. It pulled forces from across the galaxy, teleporting them into the chamber. The space became so crowded with swarm creatures that there was barely room to move. But still the warriors held. Still they fought. Commander Wu arrived, running through the corridors, having fought his way from his crash site. He was badly damaged, his quantum form flickering, but he threw himself into the battle with a laugh. "Did you think I'd miss the finale?" Admiral Jin's voice came over the communication channel, weak and breaking up. "My ship is gone. Most of my fleet is gone. But we held the outer perimeter. You have your time, General. Make it count." 3 minutes, Dr. Myra said. The weapon was glowing now, building to its final activation. The swarm could feel it, could sense what was coming, and it attacked with increasing desperation. General Day saw his warriors falling one by one. Each time one dissolved, he felt it like a physical blow. These were not just soldiers. They were legends, heroes, the best humanity ever produced. And they were sacrificing themselves one final time. 1 minute, Dr. Myra said. Only 5 warriors remained standing. Day, Myra, Wu, Yuna. and Kai. The others had all fallen, buying time with their existence. The swarm pressed closer, knowing it needed to stop the weapon in the next 60 seconds or face something it did not understand. "General," Dr. Myra said quietly, "the weapon needs an anchor. Someone has to hold it in place, channel the resonance through themselves. They'll be at the center of the blast. Even quantum forms won't survive." Day understood immediately. This was always going to be a one-way mission. "I'll do it." "No," Captain Yuna said. "Let me." "That's an order," Day interrupted. He looked at the 4 warriors standing with him. "You 4 get out. Tell the story. Make sure they remember us correctly." "General," Kai began. "Go." Day roared. Then softer he said, "Please. Someone needs to survive to know we succeeded." The 4 warriors hesitated, then saluted. They ran for the exit, fighting through swarm creatures, leaving their general behind. General Day stood alone with the weapon. Dr. Mira had programmed it, but he needed to hold it, channel his consciousness through it, anchor it to reality. He grabbed the device with both hands and felt it connect to him. The resonance flooded through him, the consciousness of every human who ever lived flowing like fire through his being. 30 seconds. The weapon's countdown showed that the swarm creatures rushed at him. Dai could not fight them off anymore. He was anchoring the weapon. All he could do was stand there and take their attacks. They tore at him, ripped pieces of his quantum form away. He felt himself dissolving, but he smiled, because the weapon was almost ready, and because he knew exactly what message he wanted to send. 15 seconds. Day's form was barely holding together now, but he opened a final communication channel, broadcasting to the entire galaxy. Every species with the ability to receive signals would hear this, including the 4 warriors who had just escaped the core. "This is General Day, speaking for humanity. We're extinct, but we're not gone. We're in your history now, in your nightmares, in every impossible victory, in every last stand. We lost our war, but we made sure you'd remember us. The swarm consumed us, but now it's their turn to learn what it means to be human. It means never giving up, never surrendering, never letting them forget you existed." 5 seconds. "We were here. We mattered. Remember us." The weapon detonated, but it was not an explosion of force. It was an explosion of consciousness. Every memory stored in the resonance, every death, every battle, every moment of human existence was forced into the swarm's hive mind all at once. The swarm experienced the death of Earth. It felt billions of humans dying as their world was consumed. It experienced 300 years of war from the human perspective, feeling every loss, every sacrifice, every moment of defiance. It felt what it meant to be human, to know you were going to lose, but fight anyway. The core hive's consciousness shattered. It could not handle the emotional weight of humanity's entire existence. The hive mind fragmented, broke apart, dissolved into chaos. Across the galaxy, every swarm creature suddenly stopped. The connection to the core was severed. They reverted to simple organisms, no longer united, no longer dangerous. The devourer swarm died not from physical weapons, but from being forced to understand humanity. When the 4 surviving warriors regrouped at a safe distance, they felt a change in themselves. They were still quantum beings, still unable to truly die, but they were more stable now. The destruction of the core had somehow anchored their existence permanently. They would never fade. They would exist forever, sustained by the resonance and the memory of their fallen comrades. Captain Yuna spoke first. 36 warriors gave their lives for this. They, and all the others who fell in the battle. "They're not gone," Dr. Myra said. She could feel them in the resonance. "Their consciousness is still there, part of the quantum field. We can't manifest them anymore, but they're not truly gone. They're part of the universe now. What do we do now? Engineer Kai asked. Our mission is complete. The swarm is broken. What's our purpose? Commander Wu looked out at the galaxy. In the distance, he could see Vathan ships approaching, along with vessels from a dozen other species. They were coming to see what the humans had done, coming to witness the aftermath of humanity's final battle. Our purpose is the same as it always was, Wu said. We make sure they remember. We become the guardians of humanity's legend. We make sure that when civilizations rise, they know what humanity stood for. The 4 warriors scattered across the galaxy. Yuna traveled to primitive worlds, protecting them from tyrants and teaching them about courage. Kai went to dying civilizations, helping them rebuild and sharing human technology. Wu became a wandering warrior, appearing when evil seemed about to win and tipping the balance. Myra established research centers, teaching other species about science and ethics and the human way of thinking. And across the galaxy, humanity's legend grew. The Vathan finished their archives of humanity, a massive collection that every species could access. Young beings learned human languages and studied human philosophy. Governments established holidays, remembering the fall of humanity and the breaking of the swarm. Temples were built on old human worlds, not to worship humans, but to remember them, to honor the species that lost everything but refused to be forgotten. Poems were written in their honor. Songs were sung in human languages. And sometimes, on old battlefields, ships would detect strange readings. Ghost soldiers still on patrol. Phantom vessels keeping watch. The quantum echoes of warriors who died, but whose duty never ended. On a Vathan colony ship, 50 years after the breaking of the swarm, pirates attacked. The crew prepared for the worst. Then the lights flickered, and a figure appeared on the bridge. He wore an old general's uniform and smiled at the terrified pirates. Did you know humans once died? Commander Wu asked conversationally. We got over it. Now who wants to learn why that was a mistake? The pirates fled. The colony ship was saved. And the crew told the story to everyone they met, because that was the point. Humanity was extinct, but they were immortal. They were gone, but they were everywhere. They lost the war, but they won something more important. They became a legend that would never die. They became eternal. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space, General Day felt satisfaction. Mission accomplished. Humanity was remembered. And they would be remembered forever as the species that taught the universe what defiance truly meant. The last human had died, but humanity would never end.